this is Aria Pro 2 guitars. I've been, the other day or last week, I bought that one there, and I realised that suddenly I've actually got quite a lot of Aria Pros that kind of snuck up on me a bit. So I'm right into my early 80s Japanese guitars. They make stunning things. So Aria have been going for yonks. They started off, I think maybe even in the 60s, but the 70s they made quite a lot of sort of Fender and Gibson copies, you know, Les Pauls and Strats and the like. And then the story goes, which I read in a guitar magazine one time, Mr. Arai, who changed the name to Aria because it was like a musical, but it was originally Arai, went to an American guitar show. I don't know if it would be NAMM or whatever it was, the equivalent of was back then, and was amazed that everyone there was more interested in the sort of 50s Fenders and the 50s Gibsons than they were in the current, you know, the mid-70s Gibsons and Fenders. So his plan was, why don't we make guitars like the 50s Fenders rather than making copies of the current line? So what they did was they made this would be one of the first original, probably one of the first actually original Japanese, original meant to be better, the best guitar you can get. They built it in 1978, I think these came out. So this is a PE. The first one they came out was called a PE Masterpiece, and the advert said it was the Stradivarius of the guitar. This is not the Masterpiece one, this is a lower grade one, but some of the things are the same. So it's got some strange things. It's got like an interesting neck join. Well, it is a bolt on. Well, it is a bolt on neck, but the bolts are way in here somewhere. So it's like a super long tenon, and you get ridiculous high fret access. You know, full fret access. It's got a carved top. It's got a multi-laminate neck, so it's got like 3 pieces of wood running against each other, which is very good. I really like the bullet truss rod adjustment on it. It just makes it so much easier to see when you're trying to stick the Allen key in. As you can see, this one is, if I put that over the light bulb, you can see it says the Aria Pro 2, not just an Aria Pro 2, it's the Aria Pro 2. And this has designed and approved by H. Noble, original custom body, blah blah blah, a product of Matsumoku. So this is a Matsumoku factory one, and H. Noble is one of the head designers at Matsumoku. He's actually, just now I've actually found him online. He's I can't remember, H. Noble was his like sort of English version of his name. His real name's something Japanese that I can't pronounce, but he's got a guitar company called Atlancia Guitars, and it's like they're really innovative things, you know, like crazy things you've never seen before in guitars, you know, mad frets and mad headstocks, crazy pickups, like totally, he's like a mad crazy inventor type dude. So this is one of his early ones also. So it's got like a volute in the back of the neck. There's an awful lot of sort of improvements. This was meant to be this is called their prototype series, where all guitars that we're going to make were going to be like this. And see, to be fair, you can still buy Aria PEs from this, although they have moved things about a little bit. It's like, see, it's got recessed, you can't see because I've got these are the wrong knobs for this one, by the way, but recessed bits here behind. Apparently I actually asked the guy, saying, oh, it's the reason for that is, you know, it's so you can put it on a carved top, and I was like, no, it's so there's more wood round about so they don't break, which I don't know if you've seen that quite a lot of old guitars. Happens one with plastic scratch plates, but a lot of the wooden top ones, if you drop the guitar bang on these volume controls, it punches holes in the front of the guitar. You see quite a lot of old guitars that someone's put a bit of scratch plate on to try and cover up the fact that the controls have been punched in. So the reason, according to the guy who actually, Mr. H. Noble, who actually did talk to him, but I messaged him, that's why these are recessed like this, which is pretty cool. He's also got his own bridge there, which I'm not 100% sure was a brilliant idea. I don't think it lasted very long. Yeah, so anyway, that's this is serial number's 08, so I think this one might be 1980. Although for some reason I think it might be 1978. I don't really understand the serial number. Sometimes they're not that obvious. Sometimes it just starts with 82 and you go, yeah, 1982, and other times it's like, I don't really know how that works. So this one was very, 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 well, it is very, very beat up, but I polished it. This is also one of the first ever guitars to be classed as a relic, because it's got antique violin finish, I think. Although it might just be brown, I don't know, it depends how you look at it. If you look up the catalogue, there is an antique violin burst finish. So this is a PE 600. There's a PE 800, there's a PE 1000, there's a PE 1500. The PE 1500 is the masterpiece one. It's got DiMarzio pickups, and if you come down to the PE 1000, it's the same guitar apart from it doesn't have DiMarzio pickups. And then you come down to the 800, which I think is like this but with binding, and then this one doesn't have binding. This one's actually made of sycamore as well, which I thought was quite interesting for a guitar. Yeah, so in order to try and get through some of these, I'm just making this up as I go along, by the way. So that's like possibly, well, as far as aria go, one of the first ones they ever did, PE 600 prototype series, rocking. If we go on with that, the first aria, well, maybe not the first one I bought, but the first one when I started getting into the Japanese guitars was this, which is a PB 1500. So if you look at this one as well, this one's also the Aria Pro. You just get that writing on the top, it says H Noble and stuff on it. This is a bass though. It's also a through neck bass, or a transmit neck is what they called it. This is rare. I got this in the Barras, which is the wee market down in Glasgow, just because even seeing this original PP 1500 sticker, that's how I knew what it was. So this one, serial number starts 11, which I don't even know either, so this is around about 1980-ish. The one might be 1981, don't know, but these are pretty rare things. This has got, because this is the 1500, this is the top of the range. I don't think there was ever any others this shape, there was ever any other PE bases. It really is a stunning instrument, a work of art, and it's going right in it. I don't know if you can see it. The lightings in here is pretty bad just now, but it's stunning. These are the wrong knobs again. These came with sort of cool looking cooker knobs, but they're missing in most of them, and they're missing in mine. This one I had to replace the bridge on. I replaced it with one from a Hondo Matsumoku bass, so it's the same type of bridge, apart from this one doesn't have the brass saddles. This has just got the normal steel saddles. So originally this would have had brass saddles, got the brass nut. But it's a through neck, obviously. Old headstock design, and this is the same as the last one. See, I think this might be called the Batwing. Designs came out the Batman symbol on the headstock. That light bulb's really in the wrong place, isn't it? But see, that varies a little bit when you get onto the other models. So this early bass, pretty cool. Good for early bass is actually the whole reason I've done a video of this before, but one of the first basses I ever had, I think this might be my second ever bass. My second ever bass was this one, which is an Aria Pro 2 ZZB Deluxe from 1983. The serial number starts with 3 on this one. Bolt on neck, one piece neck. So this is obviously an Explorer bass type copy. I had this in the late 90s for maybe about 2 years. Played it in a couple of bands, and then the band I was in were doing a lot of Beatles and Stonesy type stuff. So I was turning up with a turquoise Explorer, so I had to trade it in. I sold it, and I was like, oh. So what I did was say, people used to really annoy me, you can't lean it against the wall. So what I did was I had like I can't know what it was from. I had like a screw-in spike, like an attachment that came out like this. This was meant you could lean it against the wall, kind of like if you imagine like an ML bass, it was just like a metal rod. And then so that was, I sold this in 1999 or 1998, something like that. And it's one of those things that when I started buying these ones, I remember I had that Aria bass. I bet you it was really good. I couldn't play it at the time because I needed an EBO or a Fender bass because I was playing Beatles and Stones stuff. I always regretted selling it, and then 6 months ago I saw this advert on the local Facebook page, and it said, "Oh, it's got and I was like, "No way, that's the first one. Another one I've seen. It's got the maple neck." And it's like, "It's got unexplained screw holes in the bottom." It's like, "It's not unexplained. I remember putting a spike in it." So it's exactly the same bass. So this is a bass that I've owned for probably in total a year and a half, 2 years, over the last 20 years. Rocking. So these have got this has got the wrong knobs on it as well. They all seem to have the wrong knobs. It's got a really cool bridge. The Japanese were good at this era of making, sort of designing their own. I wonder if that's another H Noble thing. Designing their own stuff. It's really good high quality hardware in these things. One of the pickups doesn't work though, which it didn't work when I had it before. Yeah, so talk about the ZZ. That's the ZZB which is ZZ bass. There's also an XX, which is like a flying V shape, but a slightly more pointy. The way that's a bit more pointy, so you get your ZZs and your XXs. My pal Wayne has a ZZ guitar, and it's got like a blood splatter finish on it, which I've seen in more modern guitars, but they used to do that in the 80s, well, back in 1983ish. They did crazy finishes. You get ones with lightning bolts on them and all that, which is pretty cool. I'll go on to, this is the one I just bought last week. This is the Thor sound. And you can see it's got a slightly less pronounced spiky headstock on it. I've just done a video for this, but this is quite a rare one as well. Thor sound were sort of their, most of them are an awful lot more expensive than this. You got like your ones with your through necks, and they'd active electronics and their own branded pickups. This is kind of like the budget model. You know, it's very little to it, 2 pickups and a plastic scratch plate. But these are still pretty good. This one's from 1982 as well. So sort of 1981, 82, you got Thor sound guitars, which are cool. You do see some of them kicking about, and this one here is an Urchin Deluxe. This one, so it's like, it's kind of got a sort of BC Rich vibe going on about it. It's never going to show up, but it's got the most amazing flamed maple veneers on it. Again, these are all sticking with three thingy neck. Actually, very similar profile neck on the 3 guitars I've been looking at so far. This one's lost its original bridge pickup, but this came with brass saddles. So this is the deluxe. If you're looking at Urchins, there is a U60, which is a sort of cheaper one, which is solid colour. You get it in black, red and white, and it's got chrome hardware. And then there's the U100, which is very like a BC Rich bitch. In fact, it's through neck, you know, you can see it like you can on that bass, and it's got active electronics, lots of switches and coil splits and stuff like that. They're pretty rare, but this is a lovely guitar. It really is, but it's a really strange shape. I think when I do my spiky guitar collection, this will definitely have to make it into that, because it is of the BC Rich ilk. Although I think when BC Rich started coming out, obviously BC Rich used to be an American company. They used to copy the Mockingbird and the Bitch before BC Rich actually made them in Japan, so you could only get the handmade ones, you know, like thousands of pounds. And Aria actually had a copy of their guitars before BC Rich started copying their own guitars, if you like, making them in Japan. I've got a few Japanese BC Riches as well. Yeah, so that's kind of me getting almost as much as I know. This is the RS series. This is obviously, I was getting later 80s, this is 1986. So this is their kind of Strat model. This is quite a late on one though. Earlier on in this they had, in the early 80s they did have these that were a bit more Stratty looking. You know, they didn't have the Floyd Rose, and they didn't maybe have the HSS pickup configurations and stuff like that, or the pointy headstock, who were maybe a bit more Stratty, but they were like, this was their sort of Strat version. As you can see, it's this shape though, so it's kind of like a long horn there. Kind of reminds me a little bit of West Tone guitars, but I'd imagine they're probably designed by the same guy. So they were always right up there with their innovations. You know, this is 1980, what did I say, 86. So this is kind of the last of the early 80s guitars, I would say. I know that's kind of obvious, but you know, before, this is pre-Ibanez RG. Once the Ibanez RG came out, then everything just changed, and everything became boring and is exactly the same as it is just now. You don't get guitars that look like this anymore, really. We're going to, like, when round about 86 is when they were still Japan. They still had a good deal on them, and then this is now getting towards the end. Japan started shutting down. They started making guitars in Korea, like, because it was something to do with import taxes and stuff like that, exchange rates. So basically Japanese guitars were no longer cheap, they started being really expensive. So this is the kind of last ditch attempt, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a Jackson Soloist, isn't it? Or something like that. So this is much, you can basically buy this guitar or something very similar to this now. You know, this is obviously that's an aftermarket thing, and the pickups are aftermarket, and so it's a big brass thing in the headstock. But this is a 1987 rock device, when I think they were trying to use up the last of their. She's got this mad roller system that someone's put on. Must have been really expensive because it's made of solid brass. So kind of as a string guide, and it's also the bridge is like a solid block of inch thick brass. So it's good fun. But so I think this is in kind of towards the end of the innovation of the Japanese era. I actually managed to get through this an awful lot quicker than I thought I was going to. But they were still innovating. This is the rock device bass. Check the pickups on this. So it's basically just a P bass. It says rock device on the headstock, which you probably can't unless I put it in front of the light. Yeah. So P bass with double pickups in it, which is pretty cool. And you just tell these things. This was 86 as well, I think, or 87. Can't remember. Still says made in Japan. This serial number starts with KO2, so I don't really know what that means. But if you look up brochures online, you can find some of these. I think this is one of the ones you only see in Japanese catalogues, so you don't really know anything about it apart from the year, because obviously the year's still written in with numbers you understand, whereas all the specs are all written in Japanese. I forgot to say the reason about this one as well. Because when they were getting rid of the RS stuff, this is actually a Metal Master. No, sorry, Mega Metal series, which I kind of bought just for the. Well, I kind of fancied the RS shape anyway. There's a lot of RS ones kicking about. You get they were big the late 80s. I'm not sure which ones are Japanese and which ones are Korean. But there's a Wildcat. There's my pal's got an RS Esprit. There's I should be able to run them more off my head than that. Some of them have got really cool names. Like at the same time as you had your Mega Metal and rock device, there was Armoured Warrior, Night Warrior, things like that. But some of them are Korean, and although it sounds just like I'm being snobby that the Japanese ones are better, there was quite a considerable drop in quality in all guitars around the world in about 1987 when they started going to Korea, and then just trying to make them cheaper rather than trying to make the best guitars you could buy. Because that was the point of a lot of these ones where it was going to be sort of slightly cheaper than a Gibson or a Fender, but a much better guitar. And then after that they decided, oh, hold on, we can still make them look like this. They look sort of pretty similar, but they just didn't put the quality up quite as much as it is. I might get a lot of hates for that because Aria Pro 2 there's a lot of Super Strati kind of more in this kind of mould, and later mags. There's lots of series in Aria Pro 2 that are produced in the 80s and the early 90s and all the 90s really, sort of Super Strats and all these things. It's just that's not really my thing. I mean, even that one's a little bit too Super Stratty for me. I like kind of the bizarre shapes. Yeah, so Aria Pro 2, I don't think you get that many Aria Pro 2s anymore. You still get Aria guitars. I had a 335 copy with a Saltire on it, and it was just an Aria. It was a good guitar, but I mean, I think these things are all made in China now, and all these things, just the glory heyday of the Matsumoku run, which I think, I might not be right, but I think all Aria Pro 2s of this era, like between sort of the late 70s, in fact probably from the mid 70s to the mid 80s, are all made in the famed Matsumoku plant. That was actually what made me buy this. I wasn't sure what it was, I'm sitting there thinking, just going purely for value, I know that something that says Japan on it is worth more than something that says Korea or Taiwan or China on it. I didn't really realise why. I've just bought that on a whim. I paid like about a tenth of what it was worth because I was thinking, oh, it's a Les Paul bass. You see very few Les Paul basses. I figured I could sell it on if I didn't like it, but obviously when I got home and I adjusted it, made it play, it was like, oh, what is this? This is something ridiculous. And it is. I mean, the quality of it, I don't know. If you were to buy that new today, a couple of grand anyway, just going by the hardware quality and just the actual build of these things. I mean, the build of basically all of these is just sky high. Maybe they started wavering off a little bit. This one had really bad pots in it, but that may just been a bad run of electronics. They were totally disintegrated, but the pots were sort of instead of having metal in the back, they were plastic. So I wonder if it was maybe like an innovation for these new types of pots that were just shit, and so they didn't survive past 1987. So I had to replace the pots and that. But I mean, the bass itself sounds fine. And I think maybe they just, once you start getting into the sort of, you know, the solid colours and the pointy heads, it's just, they don't look as classy. Yeah, so that was my 20-minute video on Aria Pro 2. Obviously there's tons more, there's lots more lines as well. There's a Cardinal series which I've not come across cheap yet. They're sort of, oh, dare I say it, a bit more like this. I think Thor's were a bit more stratty, and then a little bit, these are kind of your fancy, lots of switches on them, kind of almost BC Ritchie type, what you would compare to now, you know, your BC Rich masterpieces they're called, I think, or classics, where you get the sort of woods and it's spiky and it's got lots of switches, and that's where the Thor sound were. The Urchin, I think it actually did okay. They made it for a good few years. 3 different bodies on that. The PE, there's like the 4 in the range, 600, 800. I can't remember whether that's a 6 or an 800, and then 1000 and 1500. Kind of the same. I bought that because I wanted something that would match the bass. But because it's through neck, obviously it would be nice if that was through neck. But none of them are through neck because they've got this super neck join system. Later on ones have a sort of 2-bolt neck plate on there as well. This one doesn't, it's just all the way through. And after that there's other PE ones which have like a more standard, I don't have a guitar that's got, you know, your Gibson Tunematic type bridge on it instead of the Noble bridge. Sometimes they get coil tap switches in them, and they lose the on the headstock, and they lose the bullet truss rod, which is, I think it's because it's a really ugly thing, the bullet truss rod, but it's so much easier. Because, like, you know, rather, I don't know if you've ever tried adjusting a truss rod, you're looking down a hole and you're trying to see which Allen key it is that fits that one. The actual bit you stick the Allen key on is right there, so you can just go, haha, it's dead easy. A great invention that. I wish I'd stuck to it with more guitars. Yeah, so I think that's me pretty much done. Rock and roll, this video might not be very good.